everything in the sky, and then affects the breathing and it affects your body. Imagine the damage that is being done when on one day 89 bombs fall. The day after, the sky was black. The clouds were black. Whatever that was being used, we have no reason to think that it was not depleted uranium. I breathed it. I tasted it. And imagine I left and went home. And I'm taking corrective measures because I know I've been exposed to heaven only knows what. But the people of Libya are in the midst of a massive crime against humanity, massive war crimes, and of course what we've been told, the worst crime is crime against the peace. And the idea that the people of Canada would support, pay for the purchase of 1,000 more bombs to be shipped to Libya to be used against the people. At some point, our sensibilities and our sensitivities have to be so insulted by the actions of the people who purport to behave in the manner that they do on our behalf. Everything that you have been told is a lie. And I will relinquish the floor now so that those Michel and Mahdi who come after me can explain to you the depth of the lies so that you can be as outraged about what is happening as I am now. Thank you.
Michel Chossudovsky is somebody else who's been a hero of mine. I first heard Michel when he spoke very, very eloquently at the 2004 Citizens Inquiry for 9/11. And he really blew me away on that particular event because he was so articulate and so powerful on realities in our world. Michel has recently retired from the University of Ottawa in professor of economics, but where I get ongoing knowledge, and it's one of the things I can't live without, is his website. And Michel is the founder, I think, editor and head of the Research on Globalization website, which is, I'm going to put a plug in for it because I can't live without this website myself. It's www.globalresearch.ca. And it has videos and information that is always cutting edge.
Let me tell you something. Thank you very much for this introduction. It just so happens that today is the 10th anniversary of the globalresearch.ca. It was launched on the 9th of September 2001. We started up in a very modest back room in my home, and on the 8th of September, which was my birthday actually, a young man who came in on a wheelchair to help me, to teach me how to use file transfer protocol, and then the following day with makeshift front page, it was all sort of handicraft designed. We launched the website, and then a few days later in the wake of the tragic events of 9/11, the website became very prominent because we brought out some of the first articles on those attacks. And so I think this is one of the few days I haven't worked on the website. There are no text today because we were traveling. I have recently returned from Syria, and I wanted to address the broader issues of the global war on terrorism, particularly in the context of the debate on 9/11, and then perhaps look at the military agenda. 9/11 was the launch pad of the global war on terrorism. It was not necessarily the launch pad of America's war on the world. That goes back to well, at least it goes back to what we call euphemistically the post-Cold War era. Okay. Now the post-Cold War, I'm sorry, not the post-Cold War era, the post-war era. Yeah. The post-war era is an era of continuous war. So that terminology from the outset should not be used. We shouldn't say the post-war era anymore. We should say the continuous war era, okay? Whatever you want to call it. But if we're talking about the extension of that war from the Balkans to the Middle East and Central Asia, those plans go back to the 90s, okay? And the Balkans was really very much related to subsequent wars. And very few people actually understood the fact that Balkans was a lead into a much broader war. And that roadmap was set in official documents going back to the 90s. I recall reading a Central Command document, which is a military document. It emanates from Central Command. And it essentially states, first Iraq, then Iran. And that document dates to the Clinton administration, 1995. So that this whole war path or roadmap was already determined at a much earlier stage. And of course, we had the Gulf War, which was the first stage of the war in Iraq. Okay, it was a war in Iraq. We had the Iraq-Iran War, and which was triggered as a result of covert operations by the United States to make these two regional powers confront one another and consequently weaken themselves in view of a subsequent military operation. But 9/11 is the launch pad of the war on terrorism. In terms of military doctrine, it's very important because it provides a pretext and a justification for waging war on humanitarian grounds. In this particular case, it was a war of retribution directed against Afghanistan, launched on the 7th of October 2001, barely 4 weeks after the tragic events of 9/11. We were told, and everybody in Canada, the Council of Canadians, the trade unions, everybody joined the bandwagon of a war of retribution on a country, an impoverished country in Central Asia, on the grounds that Afghanistan had attacked America. They didn't say that. They said the Taliban supported Al-Qaeda who attacked America. But there was absolutely no evidence that Al-Qaeda was behind these attacks, certainly not on the morning of September 12th when NATO, invoking Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, declared war on Afghanistan. They actually confirmed that shortly before the bombings. It was a tentative conditional declaration of war, but everybody believed, with some exceptions, and this whole thing went into our brains, into our inner consciousness, and nobody actually dared to say, no, this doesn't make sense. Very few people did, even in progressive movements, okay? And some people had the honesty of saying, no, we've changed our minds on that, because the popular support was there. Everybody was supporting it 10 years ago. You know, and I don't want to mention any names, but we were very few people in the anti-war movement at that time, okay? Some people like David Orchard, his brother is here tonight, but we didn't, Maud Barlow didn't move a finger, with all due respect, okay? Because that was considered a just war. It was a just war. And they even would you know, they used the concept of the just war, which you know, we know in history. It was presented to us as a humanitarian undertaking, and we were led to believe somehow that Afghanistan had attacked America. We never used even the term the government of Afghanistan. It was always the Taliban. It was always the Taliban. It wasn't the government of Afghanistan. A country of you know, some 20 million people doesn't have a government, okay? And they exchanged letters through diplomatic channels. They even approached the White House saying, if you have proof that bin Laden is behind these attacks, we will be happy to negotiate his extradition to the United States, okay? These are very educated people from ancient civilizations, and they learned diplomacy well before George W. Bush got to the White House, right? You know, these are the civilizations of Central Asia, of Mesopotamia, of the Indus Valley, and somehow we've gone to tremendous length to describe them in a somewhat subhuman way. The way we describe Afghanis today is people who are living in the Stone Age, so to speak, and we don't acknowledge the fact that in the 70s it was one of the most it was a progressive, secular Muslim society. Women in the public sector, a project to develop their own project, whether we like it or not. They were allies of the Soviet Union. Of course, they were caught in the network of the Cold War. And Afghanistan, throughout history, has always been very strategic. Now, what I'm saying is that war on terrorism was launched. It's called GWOT, G-W-O-T, and it was launched on the pretext that we have to go after the terrorists, which is bin Laden and his organization Al-Qaeda. Yet, if you consult intelligence documents, historical records, you come to the conclusion that Al-Qaeda was in fact a creation of the CIA, going back to the late 70s, early 80s, initially under the Carter administration and then under the Reagan administration, and that the training camps, the madrasas, were set up by the CIA with the support of Pakistan's inter-services intelligence, and that they created these terrorist organizations. Okay? Now then, what happened was that in the wake of the Cold War, we were told, and this was the situation in 9/11, that Al-Qaeda was no longer an ally of the United States, as it had been during the Soviet-Afghan War, and they had now turned against us, okay? They have turned against us, and that was called in intelligence parlance the blowback. The blowback is